As dawn approaches in Japan, it'll be interesting to see quite what the most terrible aftermath is after this earthquake there. The Japanese authorities, we're hearing, will be releasing slightly radioactive vapor to ease pressure at that nuclear reactor that we were talking about a little earlier, where that cooling system has phased. Sparked, of course, by that massive earthquake, 8.9, most powerful one to hit Japan since records began.
Yes, the Japan's Nuclear Safety Agency says pressure inside one of the 6 reactors at the Fukushima plant had risen to 1.5 times the level considered normal. The agency said the radioactive element in the vapor that will be released would not affect the environment or human health. Nonetheless, I'm sure that will be causing considerable concern to people in Japan hearing that news.
A little earlier, United States said that it would be helping with emergency cooling fluid or cooling system fluid for that nuclear plant because of the emergency there as that pressure built up. But that's the latest line, that they will be releasing some of that vapour in a bid to try and ease off some of that pressure.
Well, the news of the earthquake and the images spread quickly around the world via social networking websites. Mark Worthington reports.
The terrifying power of an earthquake filmed by those fearing for their lives. Within minutes of the earth beginning to shake, the first eyewitness videos were appearing online. In a country where cameras are commonplace, the quake appeared to be recorded as it unfolded, even as people rushed to safety. In Tokyo, the big one has long been expected. Some seem to fear this was it.
This is like the real thing. This is the real thing.
Showed oil refinery up in blaze.
And it looks like the tsunami has engulfed several cities in Miyagi Prefecture.
As áreas costeiras da Bahia de Mutsu, na província de...
And due to the tsunami, there's been many people who went missing. In Yamada town, due to tsunami, there's been many deaths.
As of 7 p.m., the full extent of the damage is still not known.
This is Hachinohe City at 4:30 p.m.
Obviously, someone inside that building waving a white towel seeking help. Maritime Self-Defense Force also sent naval escort and transport ship to the coastal area of Iwate Prefecture.
Well, just a selection of those extremely dramatic images from Japan throughout the course of the day.
Yeah, showing the enormous power of not just the earthquake, of course, but that devastating tsunami that followed shortly thereafter. Much more on this, of course, throughout the evening with us. But right now, let's take a look.
Well, this is the moment the magnitude 8.9 quake hit, the most powerful ever recorded in Japan.
The tsunami has sent waves of up to 10 metres high, sweeping into coastal areas.
Several fires have broken out, including one at an oil refinery. A nuclear emergency has been declared as reactors have automatically shut down.
Here in the UK, the aid effort kicks into action to help those displaced by the catastrophe. Causing massive devastation and loss of life.
Well, with a magnitude of 8.9, it is the 6th largest quake ever recorded.
It's too early to establish a death toll, but it could be several thousand. An entire passenger train, in fact 2 trains and a ship carrying 100 people are both reported to have been swept away.
Fires have broken out in several places, including an oil refinery. A nuclear emergency has been declared after a number of reactors automatically shut down following a quake.
The epicenter was some 80 miles off Japan's east coast, off the city of Sendai.
The Pacific Tsunami Warning Center issued alerts for 20 countries covering virtually the entire Pacific coastline, including the United States, the Philippines, Indonesia, Mexico and Hawaii.
Well, the United Nations has said it will do everything and anything it can to help with search and rescue teams from 45 countries on standby. Our first report tonight is from Bridget Kendall.
The terrifying moment when it all began. A super earthquake and nowhere to hide. And then an even greater horror. A tsunami that sent a giant wall of water racing towards the coast, tossing cars, boats and buildings like fragile toys. It was exactly 2:46 p.m. local time when the earthquake struck. This was in the local government office in the city of Sendai, close to the epicenter. Papers, furniture, nothing was safe. This was the local air terminal where the ceiling collapsed. As far as hundreds of miles south in Tokyo, offices, homes and shops shook and rocked, leaving some people in tower blocks trapped without escape.
When it really started to get quite seriously shaking, at that point I just thought, I could possibly die now. I mean, this is, I don't know if I can get down the stairs in time to reach the bottom floor. And then I also had my wife screaming down my ear because she was working in one of the buildings in Tokyo.
For those living by the coast, worse was to come. The 23-foot tsunami triggered by the quake reached the shore with terrifying speed. Boats broke away from moorings, splintering as though made of matchsticks. Whole buildings collapsed into the water. These images from Japanese TV show the terrible power of the water, sweeping away whole shipping containers and crushing buildings like tin cans. One entire ship carrying dozens of dock workers was simply swept away. Here in Miyako, the entire port was submerged. Cars and vans and even houses were swept up in the swirling current. One building here on fire. And further inland, the black wall of water continued its relentless onslaught over fields. Thick with debris, it absorbed everything in its path. Many abandoned homes were left half underwater. Not everyone managed to get away. In Tokyo, the tremors also caused havoc at the Parliament building. The Prime Minister went on television to brief the nation.
It was a very strong earthquake. And in the Tohoku region, mainly and over a wide area, damage has been inflicted. I offer my deepest sympathy to the people who have suffered the disaster.
And a further cause for alarm, damage to infrastructure. This oil refinery east of Tokyo caught fire as a result of the quake and then exploded to rage out of control. The flames billowed over 100 feet into the air, blazing like a fireball for hours. There were also, worryingly, incidents at 2 nuclear plants. They shut down automatically when the tremors began, but a small blaze started in the turbine hall of one, and the cooling system failed in the other. Local residents were evacuated as a precaution. Transport links in the region hit by the disaster were also affected. In some places, roads buckled or cracked wide open, leaving gaping holes. Other coastal roads were swept away, or motorists found themselves stranded on bypasses, watching the swirling muddy water below, littered with debris, smashing into the embankment. And the airport in Sendai was completely submerged. The water crept up the runway. Passengers took refuge on the roof of the terminal building. In Tokyo, thousands of commuters were stranded when rail and road links ground to a halt. The BBC's Tokyo correspondent, Roland Burke, witness their desperation.
Just look at this, a huge line stretching down into the distance, people waiting to catch a bus. There are thousands of people, millions of people on the streets of Tokyo tonight. All trains have been suspended. The official advice, if you're safe, is to stay where you are. But after the shock of this afternoon's earthquake, many people just want to get home.
As nighttime fell, fires were still breaking out in the places that bore the brunt of the disaster. Rescue teams reported they'd found hundreds dead in Sendai and more bodies in other places. Many people are still missing. Aftershocks have continued. On this day of catastrophe, the scale has been so immense, it's hard to absorb it all. Bridget Kendall, BBC News.
Charlotte Kapani is a British national who was visiting the Oxford University press offices in Tokyo. Well, thank you. How are you? How was your experience today?
It's pretty terrifying, I think, is probably the right word to use. Never really experienced anything quite like it in my life, and hopefully not again.
Well, just try to describe for us, if you can, what exactly happened and what was going through your mind as the earthquake happened.
Okay, so I'm visiting the OUP offices here in Tokyo, and I've been here for a few days, and we'd had a couple of tremors a couple of days ago, and so I'd sort of experienced this strange sort of sensation of an earthquake. And then today at about, I think it was 2:45, it started again, and I was just thinking this is going to be another tremor, and it just got stronger and stronger and stronger, and things were falling off shelves, and everything was rattling and banging, and it was absolutely terrifying. And obviously the Japanese staff knew what to do, and they sort of shouted at me to get under a table. So I was sort of sit underneath the table with all of this crashing and banging going on around me, and kind of hoping it would stop. And all I was thinking was, I'm on the 8th floor of this building, and if this building goes down, I just don't have a chance of survival. It was really just terrifying, really terrifying.
Well, thankfully, of course, the Japanese have some of the best construction to deal with this sort of thing in the world. It must have seemed like a horribly long time to you as you were underneath that table trying to shelter.
It really did seem like it. You know, the main thing is you're just sort of thinking about everybody else and just sort of making sure everybody else was okay. And it was an amazing sort of feeling of friendship and camaraderie, detremely. That was going on in the office. And
then did you try to get out of the building as soon as you thought it was possible to do so?
Yes. So when the main tremor stopped, there was the part of the ceiling had come down, and so there was smoke and dust everywhere, and then there was alarms going, and everyone was just saying, "We've got to get out, we've got to get out, we've got to get out."